It's not a zero-sum game where there's a set pie. It's like, let's grow the pie. Let's grow the pie. Let's differentiate ourselves, yes, from our competitors, but let's grow the pie for everyone, including our competitors. If everyone could be participating in our economy in a meaningful way, if everyone were to be building their wealth in a meaningful way, I think that is better for all, including the communities, including companies and businesses.
Hi, and welcome to Tribe Talks, where we alternate in conversation between young changemakers and more established social entrepreneurs. My name's Victoria. I've recently joined the team here at Tribe, and outside of this, I also work in philanthropy. It's my pleasure today to introduce you all to Nancy Bonges, who is Head of Community Engagement at William Blair. Thank you so much for coming on, and it's a pleasure to be talking to you today. Before we continue, a quick word from our sponsors.
Streamer. Tribe Talk is a streamer studio production. Stream your podcast, stream your story, stream yourself. Try it free at streamr.nyc. Make your voice, brand, and message seen and heard on every platform today.
Tribe Talk is sponsored by Raise, a mobile-first platform powering individual activism, corporate giving, and nonprofit volunteerism. So download Raise on Google Play or the App Store to give, volunteer, and connect.
To start off with, I'd love to hear a little more about your personal and professional background that led you to your work at sort of community engagement with William Blair.
Yes, of course. Well, it's hard for me to not talk about social impact without talking just about my personal background and identity. And so I'm the daughter of Korean immigrants who came to America with barely anything. A common story of that time for many immigrants where they came to America with barely any money, just only maybe some social connections, but a big dream to start a new life here in America for their families. And my parents were one couple that were able to achieve their American dream. We did not face perhaps some of the same systemic barriers that other communities have, but through their very, very hard work, they were able to provide a thriving pathway for myself and my older brother to access high quality education, which really put us on a path to be able to achieve our own dreams, including what I'm living out today in my career in social impact. So I like to start off with that because I truly believe that background has anchored me in just a genuine passion for social impact and bridging people with opportunities. And that describes my whole career path. I started off in higher education as well as in the nonprofit sector. And then from there, did a brief stint in business development when I decided to start my career over in finance. And that was over 16 years ago. And it was in that financial services firm where I found that there was a social impact space within corporations. It can be often called corporate social responsibility, corporate social impact, or corporate philanthropy. And so when I saw this internal role open up, I decided to go for it. And sure enough, I got it. And that's when I became a community relations manager and was open now to a whole new world of corporate social impact. So that was close to about 15 years ago. I have been doing that work ever since, and really came across this wonderful opportunity here at William Blair to lead all of our community engagement. It was an offer that I just couldn't say no to or let pass me by. And I've been doing this work here at William Blair for the past 4 years now. And I feel like I've been talking a long time, but I'm happy to go into a little bit more about what community engagement looks at, how it looks and comes to life here at William Blair. But I've been doing this for now just over 4 years.
Well, amazing. And that actually leads me to my next question. I would love to hear a little more about what it looks like at William Blair.
Yeah, and so corporate philanthropy and corporate social responsibility can look like so many different things, and I've had the privilege of experiencing it in different companies. From smaller firms to very large corporations and being part of a large team. And I would say traditionally, what it often looks like is that there is this a mandate to be able to do social impact work, grant making, engaging with local nonprofit organizations that aligns with the company's brand, how they want to show up in the communities where their employees live and work, or perhaps where their business runs. And so I just want to start off by saying that it looks very different, and each company usually does an incredible job doing their social impact work in a way that aligns, again, with their brand or perhaps their business strategy. Here at William Blair, one thing that's really unique is that we don't have a focus area that focuses on one area of a community need, for example, youth empowerment or education or K through 12 education. Our focus area is really about our people, our employees. We truly believe that our people and our talent is what differentiates us as a firm, and that our employees are our most important asset. So our focus area is really about deploying our people in the communities where they live and work. And so instead of one person or one team directing on behalf of the company, philanthropic investments, what we do is we empower all of our colleagues here, and it's part of our mission. Our mission statement is embedded in there to say we empower our colleagues to deliver client success and engage in our communities. And so what that looks like day to day is that we work with our colleagues in their own giving when it comes to exploring engaging with a nonprofit organization through volunteerism, but also through nonprofit board service. And so every day, my day is packed with speaking with colleagues, finding ways to plug them in, speaking with nonprofit organizations, and being able to bridge and make those opportunities for our employees to meaningfully engage.
Amazing. I think that's so cool. And it's something I've been really thinking about recently is actually, whilst obviously people can give financially, there's also a really brilliant way to be able to give skill sets and time as well, where often perhaps in the non-profit space, they're lacking a certain skill set, or certain beneficiaries might be lacking certain areas of expertise. And it sounds like sounds very similar to sort of what you are doing over at William Blair.
Yes, absolutely. And so that's a perfect segue to one initiative that's under our community engagement called our Capital Collective Initiative. This is our skills-based initiative that leverages our employee skill set for the purpose of being able to increase wealth mobility for what we call first-gen wealth builders. So think of like first-gen college students, who are approaching their first full-time jobs, or those who have recently joined the workforce. There is a plethora of financial literacy content out there, but there's not a lot that focuses on through the lens of wealth building. And so we focus on that, impacting that group through our Capital Collective. And the other group that we hope to impact are emerging entrepreneurs. How can we, through our skill set, be able to increase access to capital and just accelerate them on the path towards success in their business ventures? We're well known in terms of our expertise in not only asset management, but in our investment banking. And so we have a ton of wealth knowledge, if you will, here at the firm, of people who can help with business plans, of people that can help with their, how to prepare to pitch to investors. And so we're hoping that we can leverage this amazing skill set here to, again, just accelerate wealth mobility for next-gen emerging entrepreneurs as well as first-gen wealth builders.
No, that's really incredible, and I think such an important and cool way that you can really leverage the expertise that you have in-house. And as you said, you're an asset management firm. Finance is, your bread and butter, and what you guys are really, really excellent at. So, and that kind of leads me to my next question of these first-gen wealth builders. Could you shed a bit of light on areas that they may have less experience in, and the areas where you are really able to add value for them in terms of building their business?
Yeah, happy to. And so this is another area where I tap into my identity. So I very much am, based on the story that I shared earlier, identify as a first-gen wealth builder. And so how we define that is in the similar way that there can be a first generation in a family of someone to attend college. There is a first generation of a wealth builder who will hopefully accumulate enough wealth to then pass on to the next generation. And just from my personal experience, as well as working with other first-gen wealth builders through our Capital Collective, something that I think a lot of people don't realize is that not only in this wealth building journey of establishing careers and building, their own personal finance knowledge and accumulating your personal wealth, not only is there not an inheritance coming our way, but we often are the ones that are giving money to our parents or to other family members. And so it's almost twofold, this impact of like why our trajectory is that much more challenging and harder than others who have access to generational wealth, is that there's not only an inheritance to expect, but we often are our parents' retirement plan. And so being able to have the knowledge to be on a strong wealth building path is all the more important. And so when we think about working with first gen, it's going beyond the financial literacy lessons, which are still important, foundational, but going beyond things like why it's important to understand credit, why it's important to have a checking account or a savings account, and really applying that wealth building lens early. And so we incorporate things like, hey, this is how compound interest works and why it's so powerful to start investing early, even if it's small. And so we'll portray these forecasting models that show here's what it looks like if you started when you were 25 versus here's what it looks like if you started investing at 35. So providing that visual is often so important. And there are some important things. Often we focus on just setting them on the right direction. And so learn about investing. There's ways to be active. There's ways to be passive if you don't like the idea of managing your own portfolio on a regular basis. But there's ways and tools out there to be able to do so efficiently. I can go on and on, but that's just an example of how it can come to life.
No, I think that's really fascinating, and it's something in my own world of work we are often thinking about is first gen versus next gen wealth, and how do, for example, next gen philanthropists operate differently to their parents or their grandparents who built the wealth themselves within the world of giving. So I would actually be really intrigued to see if you have any thoughts on these first gen wealth builders and entrepreneurs when it comes to impact and philanthropy and giving back. You mentioned earlier about giving back to their families and their loved ones and being the retirement plan, as it were. Are there any other ways in which you see these first gen wealth builders giving back differently to perhaps people who have inherited their wealth?
Yeah, there are like amazing personal testimonies that we've been able to come across. I think, where I see the impact is that I think just in general, the emerging generations just in general are very much impact minded. So I think going beyond just whether they're first gen or not, even the experience of the pandemic that the whole world went through, I do think that there's a greater appreciation that we are a lot more interconnected and reliant on our community than we realized. And the pandemic woke up the whole world to see that, right? That what we experience, that there are collective experiences. And so that we are part of this greater community, whether we like it or not, that will be impacted in different ways. And so I think I recognize that in the younger generations than myself, I'm a lot older than I sound and I look, but I do recognize that that's a very big part. And I just so appreciate that there's that recognition of and value that we are part of a greater community and just more connected to what's happening in the world around us. But that go on top of being able to identify that first gen wealth building experience, I think the grit that it takes to be able to achieve our own visions, personal visions and dreams, whatever that ends up looking like, without as much access perhaps as others around us. I think inherent in that is just again, a great appreciation for what it means to be able to have access to opportunities, to have access to resources. And so I see all around me amazing nonprofit organizations where on staff is someone who graduated from the program or is a past beneficiary of the services that were offered by that organization. And so I'm always thrilled to see when that happens, when I meet a staff member and they said, I actually participated in this program myself 10 years ago. That's a powerful testament I do see it in terms of my colleagues who identify as first-gen wealth builders. They are the ones who are often so eager to raise their hand and join nonprofit organizations. But I do agree with you that in general, whether people identify as first-gen or not, this whole next-gen piece, they want to do things differently from their parents. And I think part of that is probably to carve out their own personal identity and to tap into and make sure that they're recognizing and respecting their own personal passions. But I do agree that there's a sense of like, hey, we want to do something differently because we want something that's meaningful, purposeful, based on my lived experience. So I would say that's universal for both those who identify as first gen and those who do not.
No, of course, I have to agree with you as someone who identifies as part of that generation. I think it's definitely true, and having met people from both sort of the next gen and the first gen, I think one sort of continuous thread throughout the whole collective, as it were, is that it is a lot more impact focused in everything that we do, whether it be investing, building a business, or charity work or nonprofit work on the side. One thing, sort of circling back a little bit more to William Blair as a whole, which I would be really interested to understand a little bit more about, was why is community engagement such a core value for the organization and for businesses more generally that want to stay constructive and competitive, especially in this environment?
That's a great question. I would say there's a few reasons. The first, which is we genuinely care. And I'm really proud to be part of a firm where there is this authentic, genuine desire to be a positive impact in our communities where we live and work. And so it's been something that has been embedded so deeply in our culture from the inception of our firm. So I would say throughout the history of our firm's leadership, there's always been this strong culture and almost a expectation that if you want to grow in your career here, it means like getting involved in the community. I'd like to share that, for example, our vice chairman, he was a former CEO of the company, 2 CEOs prior. He meets with me every month to help consult and advise me on our community engagement strategy. I've never heard of that before. I've never seen that before, where someone so senior or just even someone who was involved at that level continues to be involved for that long. He also serves as president of our corporate foundation to this day. And just even today, I had a meeting with our Community Impact Steering Committee. This is an internal committee that represents business leaders across different locations around the world and different business units. And so I have wealth advisors, institutional sales colleagues, I have investment bankers on this committee dialing in from London. One had to dial in from Puerto Rico for an event that was there. And so we all dialed in, and they're taking aside this time to meet with me and my team to discuss community engagement, because we see it as truly something that's so important of who we are. And again, I shared earlier, as part of my mission, it's just like so thoroughly embedded throughout our firm. I think it just speaks to how we differentiate ourselves, is that we want to be known as a firm where our people are exceptional people, both in work and outside of work. And that is truly authentic. And one little story that came out of my Community Impact Steering Committee is that one of my members, who is in investment banking, she's in a room sitting with a few others, and someone just asked a question of like, hey, I'm noticing that companies and different firms are pulling back when it comes to their philanthropy or community engagement work. Like, is that happening? How are you dealing with that? And another person who was representing another firm said, like, yes, I'm seeing that happen in my firm too. And my colleague, she was so proud to be able to say in that moment, actually, no, we're not stopping. We're not pulling back in any way. We're very much still engaged. We are still, pushing the gas on the pedal on the gas to keep on going forward when it comes to engaging in our communities. Our colleagues are getting out there, giving, volunteering, and so I'm really proud that we're part of a firm that truly, authentically wants to make a difference, and that will not be going anywhere forever, because it's just so deeply embedded in who we are.
No, that's so lovely to hear, especially, yeah, at the moment. I was actually at a talk the other day where someone, the chief sustainability officer from Coach was there and was talking about how one of their sort of most popular lines at the moment is they make handbags from all their recycled materials, and this focus on sustainability within their business model. And actually, how with a new generation that is much more focused on impact, embedding sustainability and community engagement and social impact into your business model is really important to attract customers or to attract clients. And so my thesis, I imagine, at William Blair, it's most likely also a really key driver of clients towards you, and that you do have this community engagement angle and something that you're championing so much by the sounds of it. So would be really curious to hear your take on that.
Yes, absolutely. I think when there is there's the brand building aspect in terms of being able to extend a company's brand as well as reinforce the values that the company stands for. So absolutely there is this draw of like, hey, we want to make sure that when people see our company name and see a look at our impact and how we're being intentional in our business model, in our supply chain, in how we do our work, that it is going to be a draw for and a differentiator from competitors. So I absolutely think that is true. And we've seen that in different ways, in different examples. I would say for us, even revisiting the Capital Collective, one way to think about this, and this goes for any financial services firm, is that when we can have a more inclusive economy, imagine what our world would be if everyone in our communities throughout our country, throughout the world, was participating in the economy. Just how much greater and bigger the economy would be. And so even when we think about the Capital Collective being able to accelerate wealth mobility, we would love to be able to see a more inclusive economy, because that will also increase the client base for all financial services firms. And so having a more inclusive economy, being very intentional with engaging with communities, it's just, it's not a zero-sum game where there's a set pie. It's like, let's grow the pie. Let's grow the pie. Let's differentiate ourselves, yes, from our competitors, but let's grow the pie for everyone, including our competitors. If everyone could be participating in our economy in a meaningful way, if everyone were to be building their wealth in a meaningful way, I think that is better for all, including the communities, including companies and businesses. Absolutely.
Absolutely agree with you on that, and for everyone to build their wealth. One thing that I know you've mentioned to us a little bit before in some prep calls that I was really intrigued to sort of hear you expand your thoughts further on is how being a nonprofit is just an IRS status and not an operating model. And I would love to for you to explain a little bit more about your thinking behind this statement, and why it's so important.
Yes. So I cannot take credit for that. I do have to give a shout out to Liz Thompson, who leads a cafe group. And I heard it when at a conference with one of her that her organization put together, but this was an important discussion point for everyone in the room. And who was in the room were a lot of social impact leaders, including nonprofit leaders. And this notion that being a 501c3 nonprofit status, that's just an IRS status. It is not an operating model. It should not be dictating how organizations should run. And I think there is this outdated mentality that the moment something is labeled as a nonprofit, that there shouldn't be huge costs around overhead, that maybe philanthropists, and including corporate philanthropy or other grant makers, think about, oh, well, we don't want to give to overhead because it's a nonprofit. We want our dollars to only go towards direct program costs. And I think that's really not only outdated, but actually quite harmful. Because in what organization, whether they're nonprofit or not, in what organization will it remain a healthy organization running amazing programs or producing amazing products and services if you're not investing in the organization itself, which includes its people, which includes infrastructure, the ability to be able to scale. And so I think there's often this almost bias that comes into play whenever someone hears like, oh, this is a nonprofit organization, then I'm going to assume that you don't need that many resources, that you only do charitable work and don't invest in your own people and whatnot. So I think it's really important that we move away from that and truly see like, look, every organization has impact, even those that are for profit. We're all making an impact. The question is, what is your impact? Every organization is providing some kind of product or service, including nonprofit organizations. They are just more impact centered and impact driven, but they are trying to provide perhaps a direct service to the communities where they serve. There is always something that is a value that is being created and delivered through these organizations. Just because they're a nonprofit, we shouldn't assume that they should operate differently or operate on fewer resources. I think that's an antiquated view that we need to move away from.
No, I agree. And within my world of philanthropy, and something I'm sure you're familiar with as well, it speaks to the importance of grants without too many strings attached to it, right? And where you can give a trust-based philanthropy model, which I know the likes of McKinsey Scott have been peddling and has been a real change maker in the space. So yeah, just thank you so much for drawing attention to that, because I'm a big believer in that the impact space could look very differently if salaries look different and the infrastructure looked different, because I think it would attract talent and retain talent in a way that I think at the moment or traditionally it has struggled to do so.
Yeah, absolutely. And trust-based philanthropy is something that that the general philanthropic world is still, I would say, catching on to. And so for those in the audience who are not sure, like, what does that mean? It means like, let's recognize that there is a power dynamic between funders and grantees. And so what we often see happen is that grant recipients are asked to do onerous applications as well as onerous impact reports that are specific to that one grantor, as if they were the only grantor, not realizing that there's other like partners that this organization has. But trust-based is saying, hey, I trust you as an organization that you are closest to your work and you best understand the problems that you're trying to solve for, and you best understand the communities that you're trying to serve. And so I will trust you to do the work. And so removing some of these kind of barriers or even expectations, such as dictating how money should be spent. If the organization is the one that's truly running the program, they will be able to see and respond quickly and know how best to allocate resources. And so giving to general operating is usually highly recommended, which is what we do at William Blair. Everything we do is through match programs. And when we have people who serve on boards, we offer a very generous board match program, and it's not restricted to be used in a particular way. It is a general operating grant that we give in recognition of our colleague who's serving on the board, as well as in recognition of the organization's work. Often also, the recommendation to consider year-over-year support instead of just one-time gifts, but to truly approach it as a partnership and as a relationship that is based on this trust, to consider giving multi-year grants, and instead of having like an application that's done every single year, every single time. So I'm very proud in my career to champion that in different places that I've worked, and to really uncover what that should look like today. And I'm sure there's even more emerging thought today of what trust-based philanthropy should look like today. And I'm hoping that more voices can be given to more attention could be given to the nonprofit sector, and those voices that can speak to why this trust-based philanthropy is so important. Because just like any other organization, we have to trust the leadership. We have to trust the strategy and invest in the infrastructure and the strategy, and let those who are close to the work and understand the work to execute and to take the lead in wherever that organization should go.
Well, I 100% agree with you there. So thank you so much for sort of stressing that issue, because I think it's something that the conversation in this sort of space really does need to sort of move forward with this and really start, my personal belief is to start actioning some of these things. And just thank you so much for your time. It's incredibly inspiring to hear about what you're doing at William Blair, and really incorporating it into the work and everything it sounds like that you're doing. So thank you for that. And thank you so much for your time.
Oh my gosh, it was truly a pleasure. Thank you for giving me the time and just extending to me this platform. And just thank you, your organization, for incredible work that you are doing to invest in the next generation of social entrepreneurs. And so I just appreciate you and your community so much.
Tribe Talk is a streamer studio production. Try it free at streamr.nyc. Executive producer, David Walters. Videography and editing by David Walters. Graphic design by Tristan Bresnan. Original music by Benjamin Senmana. Hosted by Victoria Goddard.
Tribe, taking root today to advance tomorrow.